Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahe Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, so the general meaning of this prayer is, it's really in two parts. There is both parties involved, and there's always two parties in any situation. That is the listener and the speaker. And then sometimes that role can change. You can become the speaker and I can become the listener. Now, in any kind of scenario whereby one has to process what the other is saying and vice versa, what happens sometimes is we don't take time to consider, but rather we tend to sort of like react to what the other is saying. And this reaction is the cause of those arguments. So what this prayer is saying is, let's try not to quarrel. Let's try not to bring out our reactions and rather consider what is being said. Same thing with examples. Sometimes if I use an example, the examples, they're prone to like questioning, like, well, you could have used a better example, or I don't quite understand how this example suits this scenario. So we still have to understand that, you know, nobody's really perfect, and we can make a mistake, or we can maybe accidentally even offend based on your culture. So you may have some kind of an idea of what it means to speak about someone, but for me, I'm not really putting anyone down, but you may think I'm putting someone down. So we have to be considerate in this manner, because there's no intention to hurt anyone or to argue with anyone. We're just trying to do the best that we can with the resources that we have, according to how much communication skills we have. That is not to say that we will not improve. We're all improving. So this prayer just reminds us to be objective, value neutral, and try to be factual. Factual just means don't get involved in trying to like put a point across, but rather ask, what is it that's being communicated here that I'm not quite getting? So we're just asking questions like, oh, okay, really, tell me more. Versus, no, I don't see how you're saying is true. Let me tell you how it is. So that's that quarreling mode. So we have to be factual. Okay, so factual just means trying to arrive to the fact. Okay, so we're now in a discussion of Mahabharata, and I think about three or four more sessions perhaps we will go through until we finish the Mahabharata and transition into the Gita, back into chapter 10. So the discussion was around Yudhishthira's best attempts to resolve a situation. And his best attempts, in retrospect, turned out to be problematic in the sense of creating like resistance, right? One party, that is the Pandavas, didn't get a fair, a just portion of what they deserved, whereas the Kauravas kept getting a larger chunk that otherwise, according to their royal setup, they should have gotten much less. So these decisions that Yudhishthira kept on making is what we call karma. That means, when I say karma, it just means action. Okay, literally, the word karma means action. So what I want to bring up right now is to go back to that, how Yudhishthira has placed himself and his brothers where he is according to his karma. Okay, so I want to bring distinction between law of karma and law of destiny / fate. So destiny and fate, they're synonymous words in English. What happens often is we confuse karma and destiny and fate. And this leads to a victim mode, as though I don't have any control. So let's explain how that is so. Okay, let's cover first law of karma. So we're only talking about karma now. First of all, why is it a law? Why do I call it a law of karma? Because karma means action. And every action implies a preceding cause. For example, if you apply an action, go to a shop. Why are you going to a shop? Because there's a preceding cause. The fridge was empty. In other words, whatever action we take, we can trace it back to some kind of cause that made us do that action in the way that it's being done. Okay, so this is what cause effect relationship. And no one can escape this cause effect relationship. That's why we call it a law. Okay, so for example, when the sun rises, we wake up. The sun is the cause, waking up is the effect. Therefore, it is a law at every level that we look at it. So human beings are, this is the law of karma, a product of their past. So everything we are today is because of yesterday. From the standpoint of yesterday, you're that because of yesterday. From the standpoint of 2 yesterdays, you're that because of yesterday. So all that we are enjoying or suffering today is a result of these successive small causes that we have applied on a previous basis. And suppose that someone's born and they decided to, from birth, engage in noble activities. They started to read books associated with Mahatmas, that is, educated beings. So 20 years later, you look at them and how are they? We call them a noble person. We say, wow, what a person with dignity. So much self-respect and so reassured of oneself, not showing any arrogance, but humble, noble person. Why do we call that person humble, noble, with dignity? Dignity means having that sense of self-worth. That means lack of insecurities because of the kind of life they lived yesterday. So this means that that means the person is a product or an effect of their past karma. Okay, so when we say effect, all we really mean is a product. For example, if you look at your iPhone, that is a product, isn't it? But if you look at your iPhone, it's a product of what? It's a product of so many successive assembly lines that took place to put the transistors in the microprocessor together. The employees came to the shop, right, in Foxconn. They had to be educated how to put, in what order to put the assemblies together. They had to create the Gorilla Glass, the strong glass. They had to, the architecture had to be drawn on the 3D modeling programs in order to do the specs of how the phone is going to look like. And those people who did that were also subject to how they felt that day. If they had a fight yesterday with their wife, then today they would have not performed so well. And that would have influenced the specs, which in turn would have came into your hands. And someone could have made, some drunk person could have came into Foxconn and made a mistake in the assembly line. And that phone later on would have ended up in your hand. And then you would have blamed Apple. And then Apple would have refunded you. So you can see every example that we use, you cannot get away from this incredible complexity of causes and effects. Everywhere you look, this is the reality of what we are living right now. Nothing but causes and effects. So this is the law of karma. Again, what is law of karma? It is that which it implies action. And action implies previous causes. Okay, so we're constantly going through this karma. So when we say, it is your karma, first of all, this statement has no place because it is such a short, generalized statement that it's like, what do you even mean? It is your karma. What do you mean? Do you mean like it's your action? Isn't that obvious? We're all applying action. So where is place to even say it is your karma? Okay, now I want to bring law of destiny / fate and see how that connects to karma. So I am experiencing today's fortune. You and I are experiencing today's fortune. Everyone is experiencing today's fortune or misfortune because of law of karma, which we just explained, because of their own actions. However, it doesn't stop there. In other words, it doesn't mean that I'm a victim of what misfortunes or fortunes I'm experiencing. Why am I not a victim? Why are you not a victim? Because we just spoke about law of karma. The law of karma is always in operation. In other words, there's always an action, an opportunity for action which I can put out into the field, which would change the present causes, thus affect the future effects. So therefore, if I only stick with this law of destiny, in other words, that I am here because I'm here and it could have not been any other way that it is right now, then we call that victim mode. That means I've got no control. And if I don't understand this law of karma, the fact that it's always in operation, always allows me to modify my present right now action, then I will fall into this blame. And that is generally the condition of the world. That is, I'm always looking out there. It's always the government. It's always the vaccines, trying to put the AI inside the vaccines, the corona. So all of this is these conspiracy theories. It's all like them against us. But it's really funny because from the standpoint of whoever them are, which is usually a generalized term, they're also saying them against us. And you're included in them. From their standpoint, you're them. From your standpoint, they are them. So now who's here, us against them? In other words, what I mean to say is we're all just people, and you're never excluded from the definition of the word people. So therefore, there's no question of us against them. Okay, so again, I will be a victim how? If I have not investigated into the law of karma. Therefore, if I only buy into the law of destiny, that I'm here, my misfortunes today are just the way it is, that's called victim mode. But the moment I bring law of karma, that means that because of which I am here today, which is an action, cause effect, immediately this whole victim mode, blaming, criticizing, judging, it immediately starts to vaporize little by little, of course. It's never overnight. Okay, so in other words, what is victim mode? In one sentence, speaking, my favorite topic of discussion is other people. That's victim mode. It's always others. So in other words, the more we speak about others, that directly reflects the proportion to how much I have not assimilated the law of karma yet, and I'm yet to assimilate that. Those who are fully living in that and understand this law of karma, there's just no place to speak about other people. You are too involved in your swadharma. You're too involved in your life. You're too busy moving ahead in life, improving, learning, developing. So there's just no space to speak about them. But the moment the moment we lose that track of that law of karma, the fact that I can do something right now, immediately what happens is this air of victimhood starts to come and permeate in small ways. So we start to say, I'm here because of my parents, or because of the society, or because of the government, or because of the weather, or because of the air pollution, or the HARP program trying to send waves to manipulate the human beings. All of these ideas get generated in the mind. And the mind is genius. It will continue creating these ideas to justify its victimhood, thus to continue offloading its responsibility. So we have to break this cycle. Okay, so this means that this self-effort, this karma, is called in Sanskrit purushartha. Self-effort, purushartha. Now, for those of us who do know the Vedas, you also know that Purushartha is the four goals of life: Dharma, Artha, Kama, and Moksha. Now, why is the four goals of life, Artha, Kama, Moksha, and Dharma, why are these four of them called Purushartha? But Purushartha also means self-effort. Four goals, Purushartha, self-effort, Purushartha. What does that mean? It means that you have full responsibility through your action to choose which goal you want to pursue. Just the fact that four goals are laid out in life implies there's an existence of a conscious, intelligent human being whereby through his or her viveka discernment can assess the value of each goal, thus to make a conclusive decision as to what is worthy of pursuit on the basis of where I'm at right now. That implies intelligence. And intelligence implies that capacity to exercise my free will. Therefore, free will, self-effort, purushartha, they're all synonymous words. Okay, so summary. what I meet in life is destiny. How I meet what I meet is self-effort. What I meet, destiny. How I meet is self-effort. For example, I'll get to you, Thomas, in 1 second. Suppose there's a confrontation right now, and that is what you're meeting in life. You're meeting a confrontation. Suppose some person out of the blue just comes and thinks, your face reminds them of some friend who hurt them, and they think it's you. So you're totally innocent, and now they're confronting you. So that is what you meet. This is what we call your destiny, your where you're supposed, because you're here and this is what's happening right now. Therefore, it's called destiny. However, how I meet what I'm meeting, that's called your self-effort. So this means I still have the opportunity to look at this in a different way, to handle it in a responsible manner instead of getting personal about it. So yes, we do acknowledge the fact that we are where we are, and it couldn't be any other way than it is, but that's obvious. So there's no discussion there. The real focus is in the fact that I do have an opportunity to apply so that I may create a smoother situation. Yes, Thomas.
No, sorry, I was waving my brother away.
Okay. An example. Okay, I'll give an example. Back in Sydney, I used to, my favorite thing was to walk in the bush barefoot. Like my day would not be a day unless I walked barefoot in Hornsby, in the bushland. So one day, got out of the car like any other day, and 3 boys were confronting. They were walking towards me, and I was walking towards them. And I just felt this, odd vibe. So I looked back because we obviously crossed each other, and they looked back at me, and I thought, oh no, this is one of those 1 against 3. So I just turned back and I, continued my way into the bush. One of them started to come after me, and he said, why are you stealing our cannabis? I was like, I actually didn't even know what the word cannabis meant. I was 20, I think it was like 23, right? I didn't know I didn't even know. But I sort of, postulated, okay, it has to be some plant. And I was like, no, I'm not. No, you are. I was like, what proof do you have? And that really ticked him off. Like, oh, we don't need proof, And he put his hand in his pocket as though he's going to take his knife out. And he told me, don't ever come here again, else you're finished. And I had no choice, right? I had to turn back and go back to my car. Obviously, I felt scarred. I felt hurt because this was so personal to me. So, okay, so this is destiny. It happened totally out of my control. You're as innocent as you can get. However, what happened later? Okay, so immediately I thought, when I got back home, I thought, obviously I'm going to confront these 3 boys because, let's face it, I'm going to go back one way or the other. That's the only reason worthy of living in Hornsby. So I thought, okay, I know I'm going to confront him, but what am I going to do? How am I going to handle it? So I looked up I was into psychology back then, and I knew exactly what was the situation when there's a confrontation. That means, in other words, there's a threat there. So I figured out, okay, you have to acknowledge there is a threat, and you have to, diffuse the situation by telling them that obviously I cannot beat them. I'm not stronger. They're obviously bigger, and I have no chance against them. So that immediately diffuses the situation. So I made this whole blueprint, even a script in my head, what I'm going to do. So one day I was coming back from that bushland, and at Westfield there's a telephone booth there, and he was on the booth, the guy that confronted me. Yeah, I literally saw him. So I tapped him on the shoulder and says, hello, you remember me? So he's like, he takes his hand and just, who are you? Get away from here. And I was like, do you remember me? No, I don't. And I was disappointed because I was fully ready to play out my script. So, I just kept walking towards I was living at a flat back then. And again, I had this urge to look back, okay? So he's running after me. I was like, okay, here we go, fight time. So I put my Subway burger down, ready to, and I was into martial arts back then. So I was, I had some confidence back then. So, and there was this distance, right? We were like 1.5 meters social distancing back then. And, he's like, who are you? I'm the guy that you confronted. You remember that? and he had some trouble remembering. So, and he finally remembered. So anyway, I went into the script. I explained who I am honestly. I told him that, I'm not there to hurt anyone. And I'm sorry, I even apologize. I'm sorry if I gave you that vibe. And would you believe, so the whole point of saying this is how what I did, this is your karma. So what I did is, would you believe 5 minutes to 10 minutes, we were literally walking and we became best friends. Like we were just feeling totally comfortable with each other, walking through Hornsby. I was like, so what are you doing? And, and he's like, and he even told me, hey, if you got any trouble, call me, we'll back you up. 10 minutes is all it took to convert a potential hazard into best friends, like literally friends. So, and that taught me so much. In other words, what I'm saying this is what I met, that's what happened. You can't change that. That is what life presents us. However, you can still, through your own conscious, intelligent will, modify or prepare yourself in case, that is to happen in the future. In this case, I did. Therefore, I apply this law of karma. I did not go, I'm a victim. Therefore, now I have to move out of Hornsby and go elsewhere. So this is what we mean by what you meet is destiny. How you meet what you meet is your karma. And all of the focus goes in karma and not destiny, because destiny is obvious. There's not much discussion about the fact that you are where you are. So what? Now, what about genetic anomalies? Suppose someone's birth has a defect and, 2 heads, maybe a twin or some kind of a mental defect. What about that? Okay, well, first of all, we can say that is also destiny because it is so. There's no denying it. But again, the focus is not on that. In other words, the focus is on law of karma. I still do have the opportunity to modify, to look at this in a way that empowers me or that helps me so that I can use this in a wonderful, empowering way. For example, if you Google Nick Vujicic, you may know Nick Vujicic. He is a man without 2 arms and 2 legs. Nick Vujicic. And what does he do? He's a motivational speaker who goes to universities and shows kids, shows particular age groups, there is no reason for excuse. In other words, he is fully happy, fully active. He even swims. He has a fully active life, no arms, no legs, no 2 arms, no 2 legs. And he just touches, he makes people cry because, they've been sitting and going, my life is not working out. I'm a victim. Nothing is meant to go my way. And this guy, no arms, no legs. And he says, look, if I'm living this life, if I'm this cheerful, where is your excuse, right? So this means this is stepping into one's power and fully acknowledging that as a human being, I have the ability to move forward if I choose to step out of my own self-created limitations. Okay. So that is okay. Let's tie this with Draupadi now. So let's go back to Draupadi's disrobing. We cannot say that Draupadi's disrobing was a consequence of fate. That means she was meant to get disrobed by Dushasana. That means we cannot say now she did something in the past or she did something in the past life and she was supposed to pay the consequences and she's now experiencing those consequences. Why can we not say that? Because no one can deny that you actually truly don't know. You actually don't know the reason why what is happening is what is happening. There are too many variables that are connected, that are involved, that produce the situation that is arising right now. In other words, Draupadi in this case, whereby she was, called, Duryodhana told Dushasana after Yudhishthira lost himself and his 5 brothers in Indraprastha, Duryodhana said to Dushasana, go bring Draupadi, because Yudhishthira staked Draupadi. Now, did Draupadi just hand herself over? We discussed this last week. No. She firstly used her intellect. Let me try to get myself out of this situation. She was very strong. And she did all her best. In other words, she applied, she stepped into the law of karma. She did not just say, this is my destiny, my husband staked me, and I'm just a victim. I need to now go and be with my husband's, be a maid or a servant to the Kauravas. Okay, but she wasn't successful. So anyway, she was dragged into the court. And this is what we call, she is a victim of immediate causes. Okay, so why do I say immediate causes? Because this happened very recently, right? She was putting some makeup on, preparing herself to show herself to the royal court because it's a very important moment. However, something else took place that was totally out of her control. And it took place very recently. Therefore, we call it, she in this case is a result or a consequence or a victim of a very recent immediate cause. So this, in the same way, we also have in our own life an immediate cause. Okay. Now, there are also intervening causes that got Draupadi to where she was. Something happened, and you will know this if you watch seen the Mahabharata. When the Duryodhana was in Indraprastha, staying longer than he wanted to, he saw I think it was like a water or some reflective surface, and he thought it was I'm not quite sure. I don't quite remember. Does anyone remember this scene? He saw flowers or something? Yes, David.
She saw it was sort of like carpet, and she said to him, "Look out, it's water." It's sort of like a pantomime. "Look out, it's water." And because he was so arrogant, he just walked across it, assuming it was a solid surface, and he fell into the water.
Good. And then when he fell into the water, what did she do? She irresponsibly, so this is now her negligence, she irresponsibly laughed from the balcony, ha, 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 blind father, blind son. And what happened? This enraged Duryodhana. And he vowed to pay back, to get Draupadi back. So this is what we call past causes. This also contributed to Duryodhana and Shakuni's plan to set up, or motivated them to set up this gambling event in the royal court of Hastinapura. Okay? So both of these are involved. So therefore, what I want to say is neither can we say really contributed. We just don't know. But we do know that they both were taking part in her disrobing. Okay, so both of them contributed, but we cannot say which one contributed more. Therefore, we cannot say or make these conclusive statements like things are fixed in life, because you just don't know how many things took place for them to be to come together. It's too complex to know for this human mind. Okay, so what I really want to say here is we need to put this tendency aside to be so confident and conclude things as though it is the absolute. That's the first point. So, series of events took place. We know that. And these circumstances, these series were not fixed. They were a combination of immediate and intermediary causes. We also know that. And therefore, for that reason, there is no point saying, this is my fate, this is meant to be, it is meant to happen, this is my destiny. These one-liner statements are an easy way to feel good. It's a path of least resistance. I don't have to think very much when I say it is meant to be. It just makes me feel good. Okay, so we need to drop these statements because they have no basis in reality. Like, what do you mean? Okay, so what do we have to know? What is the only principle that we have to know here besides this destiny investigation? All we have to know is I have an opportunity to change my present causes so that I may affect the future effects, which I would then be glad to be experiencing. So our power is where? Right now. Okay, so now this context of power of now has some validity when you explain it, when you understand it this way. That means my action is in the now. And this action is what's going to modify my tomorrow. So we have to ask, what kind of tomorrow do I want? The one being a tomorrow whereby I'm glad to be there, or in a tomorrow that is not going to, it's going to be an obstruction to what I really want in life. So this question has to be asked, and this is going to slightly modify our present actions. Now, let's put this destiny in the context of a rishi. Was the rishi who was killed by Pandu's arrow, was he meant to die in this life? The answer is no. This is what we call immediate causes. This was Pandu's mistake. Rishi just happened to be one who made a noise that was similar to an animal, and his wife. Immediate cause, he dies. So why am I saying this? Because it's easy to brush it off as and say, yeah, you see, even the rishis, are undergoing this. They're paying their karma. This is their karma. No, just that's how it happened. Now, what about destiny from past life? Okay. So there was another scene where in the kingdom of Kashi, in the Mahabharata, Amba was having a swayamvara. What is a swayamvara? It is a lovely process whereby the woman chooses her husband. And she already had a lover. She was already secretly in love with Salva. And she made the decision with Salva, nobody heard this, that when she's undergoing this swayamvara, that she will put the varmala is the wedding garment, around his neck. So it was already known who she was going to select. Now, when Bhishma, back in Hastinapur, heard of this, he got insulted, because when there's a swayamvara, when there's a princess to be chosen, or when the princess is to choose a prince, what happens is, they invite different princesses from different districts. And so all of the districts, most of them were there, but nobody invited anyone from Hastinapur. So Bhishma thought, well, this is an insult, because we got glorious princesses here in Hastinapur. How dare they not invite us? So Bhishma decided to go over and confront the king, and he stormed into, with his chariot, he came to the temple, he stormed into the temple, and he said, I'm going to take Amba and 2 sisters for myself, for my stepbrother Vichitra Virya. And I'm not happy that you didn't call Hastinapur. For that reason, I'm taking them, and no one's going to stop me. So Bhishma took Amba and her 2 sisters onto his chariot, and he headed back to Hastinapur. Now, obviously, someone's going to chase him. And so it was. Salva, who was a lover of Amba, obviously, he didn't want to let his love just be taken away like that, because it was a special union. And so Salva confronted and challenged Bhishma on his chariot. However, Bhishma was an extremely valorous, tactful warrior. So he hurt Salva, and Salva had no choice but to retreat back to King of Kashi. So while this happened, he was not alert to Amba's feelings, who was on the chariot, because she was hurt, seeing her lover, had to retreat back with, this valor completely evaporated in front of her. So she was deeply hurt by this, but Bhishma was not noticing this. So this is his negligence. Now, when they finally arrived to Hastinapur, Amba said to Bhishma, I already chose my husband. And then Bhishma was like, well, why don't you tell me? If you told me, I would have not taken you, because this is not right to steal a woman who already has placed her heart in some other man's soul. And she said, well, because you were too busy fighting. I didn't even have a chance to say anything. And so Bhishma, was responsible. He says, okay, I'll send you back to King of Kashi, because you deserve to be with your man. So she goes back to Kashi, and now Salva, he didn't want to accept her, because he was, number one, insulted, and his valor was injured by what happened at that battle. So Salva chased her back. He says, I don't want you anymore. So now Amba was rejected by Salva. So she had to go back to Hastinapur, to Bhishma, and say, I was rejected. So now Amba was rejected by Bhishma also, because Bhishma said, no, I cannot accept you, because once you placed your heart in another man's soul, into another man, with another man, it is not right to take you. So I'm sorry, I don't want you. So now she was not wanted by Salva, her lover, and she was not wanted by Bhishma. So she had nowhere to go. And she was enraged, because this was the way she saw it, this was Bhishma's fault, because he stole them. He stole the sisters. So she vowed next life to kill Bhishma as Shikandi. And what happened? How did Bhishma die?
Bhishma Pitama actually had he had taken a vow of celibacy, so he couldn't accept Amba, and Vichitravira didn't want to accept Amba because she had, pledged her heart to somebody else, and that's why she got angered, and she, took birth as Shikandi. And Bhishma Pitama, because he was a courageous warrior, and as per ethics of that time, as a warrior, you're not supposed to confront a woman. And since Shikandi was half man, half woman, she was on the chariot, or Shikandi was on the chariot. And when Bhishma Pitama saw that Shikandi was there, so he couldn't, fight Shikandi. So he laid down his weapons, and that's when, a rain of arrows pierced through him. And since he also had that blessing that he can choose the day he wants to die, so he wasn't killed. He was on sort of like a bed of arrows, and he could decide when he would leave his body.
Wow, beautiful, Kritika. That was so detailed. Very impressed. Thank you. Okay, so this is a lovely example how a past life is also involved in the present effects that we are having in this life. But the point is, now there's a temptation to go and brush off what we're experiencing as it happened in the past life. Again, that is a means of feeling good. So what I want to say is, any misfortune, any relationship, any fortune or misfortune, any circumstance, we cannot make a fixed statement about it, because the reality is, it is a mixture of seen and unseen causes, in other words, of immediate and past causes, and there is no way a human mind is going to figure this out. Now, the reason I'm saying this is, one of the favorite topics is actually how everything works, how I'm here and why I'm here and how this event has led to that. It's a very favorite topic for most people, and they get caught up in this, this web, trying to figure out this massive web of these interconnections. No way. Okay, so our power is simply in this present, and then applying an action to move forward in life. Okay, so why else can we not know? Because our minds are limited. And the only principle, the only entity that can see and knows all, and knows not that it can, but it is all, is Ishvara itself. And Ishvara is what is Ishvara? All knowledge, all power. What is a jiva? A jiva is a human being. A jiva is limited knowledge, limited power. You can only know so much. I can only know so much. You can only do with your power so much. Pick up maybe 200 kilograms of weights. Try picking up 10,000 kilograms. No way. So there is a limitation on both on the physical aspect, but also on the mental aspect. But what is Ishvara? All knowledge, all power. And this all knowledge and all power is that intelligence which connects all of the laws in the universe, including biological laws, chemistry laws, electrical laws, physical laws, psychological laws, karma, destiny. Okay, all laws that we can think of is what connects this, what this intelligence connects. For example, you look at a DNA cell, genetics, and then through an instrument, we design an instrument to be able to look at this strand. And then we go, wow. So there's these nodes, like A, C, G, T. That's, there's a shorthand for it. And we go, okay, so what is this A, what is this C, what is this G, what is this T? And how are they all now connected together? And what makes them connected? And how is it that their arrangement or combination dictates what kind of and how the proteins get built. So we human beings look into what is already available, and what is already available is part of that all knowledge, all power. So then we create this massive field called gene research. We look into the sun and its relation to the world, to the earth, and then look at our physical laws like gravity. And then we study how is it that gravity works? What makes it work? So we're constantly looking at these laws, and we're creating these massive books trying to understand them. In other words, intelligence that is all comes in the forms of our books. And we try to just write about what is already true. It's not the other way around. So we're the ones who are studying Ishwara's all knowledge, all power. And then we create these big professions like medical industry, the biology and chemistry and so on. Okay, so let's continue with the story of the Mahabharata. Okay, so far, if you can imagine, Draupadi is in the court and she's being disrobed. And everyone in the court, because there were the main royals, there was Dronacharya, there was Kripacharya, there was Vidur, there was Bhishma. Okay, so all the wise ones were there in the court. And they had any moment the opportunity to say, no, stop playing the game. This is not leading to a good result. But nobody offered any help. Not only for Yudhishthira, nobody stopped Yudhishthira, but also nobody was able to stop Draupadi's disrobing. Not that they were not able to, but nobody did it. Okay. Why? Because they thought that Yudhishthira had lost. They thought. So the question is now, open up this to questions. Was the royal courts of wise ones in that court, was their decision, or was it justified to not help Draupadi? Was it justified to not stop Yudhishthira on the basis that they thought Yudhishthira had lost the game? Was it justified for them not to help? Let me know.
No, I don't think so. It's not justified. They should be looking at not just because Yudhishthira has lost, but they have to look at the ethics of it as well, the moral and ethical standards. And they should have intervened based on that.
Good. Okay, so what Sundaram is saying is these laws are not fixed. Okay, so there was a situation going on in the court. However, what we do is we say, okay, so this is what happened, and then we again put that full stop. We say this is fixed. The destiny is fixed. Again, we forget that law of karma. The fact that we do have an opportunity that no matter how bad it got, I still have the opportunity to intercept and make the right decision. Okay, so this is the negligence on the part of them not seeing that power, not stepping into that power. Okay, tell me what else. What is it justified for them to not help? And why do you think they didn't help? What made them not step forward?
I think it could just be sort of like ignorance and not using their viveka, because one of the brothers of Duryodhan did intervene, although his word was not, heeded to. He wasn't listened to, but he did intervene, and he was a younger brother. So even a youngster was able to understand that what was happening was not ethical, and this is not the way to behave, even if the game has been lost. But one has to see the larger picture in terms of how we are behaving as humans, because the game was also rigged. This entire game was rigged, and all of the elders did know, and especially like Vidur, who was supposed to be a really wise one, and even Bhishma Pitama, they were the wise ones, and they didn't, go beyond the simple, written rules, which are also made by man. So you have to apply your mind and go beyond the written word, which can be modified to suit your needs.
Okay, super, Kritika. This is 10 out of 10 feedback. Okay, so Kritika has said two major points, and I actually missed one on this, so I'm very happy she brought this up. The first one is the Pandavas knew that the game was rigged. They knew that. Now, despite knowing that the game was rigged, that means the Shakuni is the master of manipulating the dice, despite knowing that and knowing the consequences, because it doesn't take too much intelligence to figure out if the game is rigged in the favor of the other, then it is likely that I'm going to lose. So knowing that, still, this sense of, I want to win, I want to make something happen here, I want to show myself. So this, I want to show myself, and this idea of, of this future, that tends to sometimes supersede what needs to be addressed right now. So this is called not stepping to one's swadharma, but rather buying into one's imagination, buying into one's idea of what is supposed to happen. So this is a disconnect from reality. They're not addressing what's happening right now. And this is what we do sometimes, is we have this invisible bubble of how things are supposed to happen, an expectation. And this expectation overrides what needs to be addressed right now. And this, we think that living expectation is going to, do us well, but it is the very expectation that makes us suffer in the present, which we now then have to address again in the future. And the second point that she said was, even the younger brother, in fact, all of them, they have considered, so this is a game, and we cannot disobey our brother, our older brother, who was Yudhishthira. But it does not justify to say, well, we have no right to say anything. Because as Kritika said, there needs to be that vision of a bigger picture. And as long as that bigger picture is in mind, then is a much higher chance to intercept and bypass these so-called rules of culture that I'm supposed to adhere to. In this case of, don't disrespect your big brother, don't say anything, he knows everything. Don't, in fact, this even happened, some airplane crashes, I remember, were reading stories, were because back in those, the co-pilot used to take the pilot's word as absolute authority. And one of the cases, because the co-pilot was alert of something was strange, but he still gave authority to the co-pilots, to the pilots, and for that reason, the plane crashed. So again, we cannot, we need to intercept if there's something inside us telling us, no, something is off here. We need to sometimes step back and just take affirmative action so that it doesn't escalate into a further downfall. Okay, so this big picture needs to be held in mind. Without that big picture, then the present, then it becomes more important. Another example is it's common to, as a child, whether you're a son or a daughter, to keep your mouth shut when your parents are speaking, because especially as if one's who's still at home, there's this tendency that if parents have the absolute authority and I just don't have any say. So this is another one of those places where I'm not keeping the larger picture, and then I just allow this situation to override what I feel I should actually, or where I feel I should take action. Okay, so it comes in many different examples. All right. Another, what I wanted, does anyone else want to share? Why do you think that the Pandavas didn't take, the Kauravas, that the court didn't take any action?
Put it plainly, ego that stopped him from actually admitting that, yes, this is it. We have to stop here.
Yeah. So they don't want, they don't want to admit?
Sorry. Could it be his ego that stopped him from not intervening or, continuing the game?
Okay, but expand on this. What do you mean by ego?
Well, obviously, he didn't want to admit that he's losing it, and he staked his wife on it. So the fact that his ego overlooked everything else, he was blocked by that.
Okay, good.
He didn't want to give in.
Okay, so Yudhishthira, so you're talking about Yudhishthira?
Yudhishthira, yeah.
Okay, good. So this is another possibility. So now we're talking about Yudhishthira, not about the court. So maybe Yudhishthira didn't want to admit because he sees himself, a possibility, as an older brother who has a responsibility. And this role that we buy into is that I am the one who upholds the family. I'm the one who upholds the tradition. We sometimes overbuy into this idea, and then we reject other people's feedback. This happens with teachers also. Like the teacher is supposed to be all-knowing, and then they reject the students' feedback. So this is also another possibility. Robert?
Yeah, I just wondered, also you have the moral consideration of the rights of an individual and their human dignity in the case of the party, and the willingness or wanting to act for the greater good of the whole, for the most number of people. So I'm wondering if they felt if they acted to intervene, that it would cause conflict which would affect many more people than just the party.
Right. Robert, I didn't quite catch all of the words you're saying. Yeah.
It's very difficult to understand me because I've had
Come closer to the microphone. Come closer to the mic. Just in one short summary.
So maybe they thought if they act to defend one individual, the consequences will have a greater effect on the whole.
Right. Consequences on the whole. Okay. Okay.
To promote a conflict that would fan out and create consequences for far larger number of people.
Okay. Okay, that's another possibility. Okay. Okay, so let me put my spin onto it, or my addition onto it. So in the court, everyone was caught up with their own narrative of what roles one plays, or what role one is supposed to play. Again, this is a disconnect from the situation that's happening right now. And it's a mistake that we all make. And for example, Bhishma, the wise grandfather, what happened is he made a vow to protect the king of Hastinapur. So what he should have done is to protect the dharma of the king, protect the dharma of Hastinapur. So what Bhishma has done, he's made a vow and he's stuck with that vow. I'm only going to protect the king, but he did not consider whether the king is going to be dharmic or adharmic. So the initial decision that we make, just like Bhishma, sometimes if we retain that decision, as Rani was saying, for the sense of that individual, like I chose this and now it's how it is. I'm not going to change it because I'm wise. So what happens is if we don't have that flexibility, then we end up suffering our lack of willingness to change or modify our decision. Because there's this thing that goes on in societies that, once you make up your mind, then you need to show yourself that you can make a decision. That is true. That is, a responsibility of a human being. But at the same time, you have to admit that no human mind knows everything. No human mind has all of the data right now. So the more after we make a decision, what happens is more data comes. And the more data comes, it's our obligation to modify our initial decision in accordance with the data that is arriving. So what Bhishma has done is not this. He made this vow and he kept this vow in the court. But if he was able to modify it, he would say, no, this is himsa, this is adharma. There's no way I'm going to stand up for this. So that would have been, he would have stepped in and stopped the game. Another is, so in the same way, we make a choice and then we limit ourselves through the choices that we made. It's the same thing. Okay. Now, let's continue with the story. Okay, so nobody came to help. However, Krishna came to help. Right? So Draupadi had nowhere to go. Nobody was listening to Draupadi because they were all living their little personal narrative, like little story. I lost. I don't have any say. This is a cultural norm. I have no right. You have no right. This is impolite. All of this narrative was going on in everyone's minds. Therefore, no action was taken. But when Draupadi asked Lord Krishna for help, what happened immediately, without any delay, without any hesitancy? He supplied her with more cloth. In other words, Dushasana eventually collapsed because he kept on pulling the cloth and he couldn't because Krishna kept on supplying more. Now, what is the symbolism of the fact that nobody came to help except the Lord himself? What do you think this is, the symbolism? Conversation time.
Complete surrender. She surrendered to Lord Krishna.
Complete surrender, okay.
Yeah, complete surrender. I actually think the whole court was full of men, and men tend to be quite selfish in their thoughts. So they were all thinking about themselves. Like you said, everybody had their own narrow minds of thoughts.
Yeah.
But when she was disrobed, she completely surrendered to the Lord.
Okay.
And
now,
complete surrender.
Sure. Okay. Now, complete surrender is a good point. That means when I completely understand that I actually don't have all the power here to help myself. This means, as again, what Rani was saying, is stepping out of that I sense that I can do it all and that I have all this power. So when we first acknowledge that actually I don't have all knowledge, all power, this is actually very hard to do. Then we end up, able to that surrender, that sort of I need help, and that is when things start to actually come into our life because we're open to change. We're open to with an open mind. Now, the other thing I want to say is when we say man, it doesn't matter if they were women or men. Okay, one way you can look at it in a physical, aesthetical basis, there were men sitting, but man just means thinking being. This can be both woman and male and female. Now, this whole selfish thing or not selfish, this is all just through the cultural conditioning. Some cultures have less of this, some have more of this. So this is all, it's not completely that an influence, even though it could participate it, but generally just man means both male and female. Okay. Why else do you think that only Lord came to help and nobody else could do? Yes, Mauktik.
Because she was true to herself while surrendering. So Lord saw her bhakti, and that is why Lord came to help, because Lord knew something was wrong which was happening with her.
Okay, so he saw that something was wrong. Good. I like that statement. He saw. Okay, so what Mauktik here is saying, okay, anyone else before I address this excellent
But Lord
statement?
sees everything. To my mind, when Draupadi asked for help, that's when he came. If she asked for help earlier, he would have come then. But she took the path of first trying to, debate with the elders and put up her point, try to convince them. That's what she did first.
Yeah.
It didn't help. And that's when she asked for help. And that's when Krishnji came.
Okay, excellent.
It's also this other option I'm thinking that if you surrender the ego is the one that prevents you from going further into your consciousness.
Yeah.
And when you surrender your ego, then the Lord comes to help you.
Sure, okay.
Yeah,
I think she was withdrawing into her real self as opposed to keeping her identity with her lower self, which is the interaction between all the individuals in the courtroom. She stepped back into her natural real self, and that was where she was coming from, a point of communication at that point.
Okay, that's a possibility. Although I think that Draupadi was already, in her, that real self, in her power as a woman, as a thinking manusha, as a thinking being. So yes, maybe and it's not that different from complete surrender, as Rani and Sundaram were saying. I would say it's all connected. That means she stepped and said, "I don't have much control here. I now, I want to ask for help." Now, the two statements I want to address was first by Mauktik. By Kritika. So she said that Lord only came when she asked for help. Now, this is excellent. It's a great summary. So this means, you heard that statement, ask and you shall receive. And that means we only receive truly when we genuinely ask, not when we ask for the sake of not even believing or not even having any faith or trust that we're going to receive. But when we have that total surrender that I really cannot help myself here, that is when we, are able to completely surrender. And what follows then is then we ask for help. And that the help is what able to move us forward. Now, what Mautik was saying is, what actually was in line with my thinking is, the Lord saw something was wrong. Now, this is excellent. So this means that no one else in this court was able to see that something was wrong. Because if one's able to see that something's really wrong, then they're able to act. So the fact that I cannot see, or now you may argue, well, they did see, that everyone knew that was wrong. But if you really knew without any impurities, then you would have acted. So the fact that nobody came to help implies that there was knowledge that this was wrong, but there was also a mixture of that narrative that I was saying earlier. So when these two personal subjective notions of what is right and wrong mixes with this pure vision of dharma, then it creates this inner conflict and we're unable to move forward or make a decision in life. Therefore, we stagnate, we delay, and then we say to the other, well, make up your mind. But they're like battling, like, I'm not quite sure what is right and what is completely, what is pure and what is impure. So this means everyone in this court was carrying a personal load. That's how human beings are on the large basis. We're carrying a personal load. Now, what is a load? It's kind of like, I think I was saying last week, carrying this big bag of narratives, of stories of who I am, who I'm not, where my place is in the society, when I need to speak, when I need to hold back, how much what parts can I get involved, where I need to stay out, where I'm good, where I'm not good. So these rules that we live prevent us from living our full potential in life. And they stop us from taking a decision that leads to wisdom, that leads to our growth. So in other words, we create these boundaries by ourselves and why do they stay? Because we never look into them and investigate and ask, what is causing me to not move forward? What could be the ultimate cause that is, even though I logically know I can move forward, but if something's making me not want to open up, something is making me close my mouth and not want to share. Something is making me not want to confront what I know should be confronted. Something is bringing fear in me, even though there is no reality in the basis of that fear. So this means we're lacking these questions, and because we never start a conversation with ourselves, they stay and they persist, and therefore they hold us back. This is why I was saying earlier, what is this victim mode? Always the attention goes out there, never on the very person who is living in this self-bounded, self-limited container. So therefore the focus has to come back onto oneself so that a situation in that court doesn't happen. Otherwise, we cannot make decisions in life. Now, Krishna is the only one that is not loaded in this entire story of Mahabharata. That is why he is the main character. In other words, his vision is clear. He knows exactly what needs to be done because there's no personal attachments. There's no personal narratives about Draupadi, who is Arjuna to me, who is Yudhishthira to me, what is Duryodhana to me. There's none of that. It's just objectivity, factual. Here's what needs to be done according to what is truly right. There's no but afterwards. There's no, yeah, but I'm not quite, all of this I'm not quite sure. Why? That is because there's a silent, unaddressed voice that is potentially intercepting and saying, no, this is not good. But we haven't looked at that voice in the past, therefore we're not able to make a decision in the present. Okay. So the Lord does not lose sight of Dharma. Therefore, Krishna is the only character in the Mahabharata that's able to make that consistent, ongoing right decision that never leads to any kind of doubts. That's why Arjuna later on asks Krishna, lead me through this war, because obviously I don't have that clarity. I don't have freedom of my notions. So you be my guide. You be my one who guides my intellect. Okay. Any questions so far before we move on with the story? Yes, Lloyd?
Yeah. What would happen if, is it the one who was disrobed, didn't
Draupadi?
ask, if he didn't ask, wouldn't it still be quite plain to Krishna that she needs help and therefore he should help? Or
Okay,
is it somehow bad for that he doesn't do anything because it's not asked for? Or
okay,
you know,
good.
can't you just assume that they need help and therefore help them without them asking?
Okay, good. So this is what Lloyd's now bringing up is a question I was going to bring up just a little bit later. And that is the question of free will being given to every individual. And Ishvara is not some person, some uncle who, who says, oh, this poor woman is being now, attacked by two men, sexually, and I need to save that woman. So Ishvara has no power to step in and make the right decision, because Ishvara is not some separate entity with its own ideas and says this person is the one, I assume this person needs help, so I'm going to help. So this is why we do not get any help until we ask, because it's only when we ask are we saying that I want help in the first place. Otherwise, so this happens sometimes in families, you try to help someone, but they're just not willing to make that movement forward. And then we get very frustrated by that. In fact, I know someone who, I'm like, you need to work, you need to like actually find a job. And they just refuse to find a job. They think it's normal just to, live with parents, which I don't quite understand, but it's until the person asks for that, sees the reality for themselves, that this is clearly not right and I need help. Only then they're open to seeking for that assistance. Otherwise, you're just going to be wasting so much energy trying to help them, thinking you're helping them, but in reality, you look 5 or 10 years from now and you will realize that actually either haven't moved forward at all or moved so slow, it is hardly any progress at all. And you will just realize you just put so much pressure on yourself. So this is also why Krishna is, if you ask now, why is it that Arjuna is the one who received the knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita? I think someone said this, we had this discussion, and not anyone else. Why did only Arjuna and not Yudhishthira, who was wiser, supposedly?
Because he asked?
Yeah, simple. In other words, Krishna was there for the Pandavas all the time. He was there for the Kauravas also. He was there for everyone. He was there for Dhritarashtra. But it was only Arjuna who said, I don't know. Only him who surrendered. Well, only when we say surrender, only him who admitted, was able to step outside his pride that I can do this and say, actually, I can't do this. I don't know. I need some assistance. And because of that alone, just like Draupadi, she also asked and therefore got that help.
To your earlier point that somebody, if they don't ask, that sort of implies that they're not ready to receive the help. Excellent. Or advice. Yeah, so even in Arjun's case, initially when Gita started, he was also giving a lot of, a blabber about why he wants to drop his weapons and why he must not fight this war. And he goes on. And Krishnaji never sort of interrupts him. He lets him take out his frustration. And it's only when he sort of, says, I need help, I don't know. That's when Krishnaji starts with the discourse of the Gita.
Excellent. So one point that Kritika brought up is not ready. So suppose now someone says, here's a common situation. You keep on asking, but you don't receive. This is a complaint. The reason is because, as we said earlier, there are too many variables that need to modify little by little so that ultimately that line of successive causes can ultimately arrive in your present. For example, suppose you say, I want a better job or something. And we just keep on seeking, you keep on praying, going, more, better job. I'm asking for help. You see, I'm applying all this wisdom in the Gita, but I'm not getting anything. So we then realize 1 year later, then we actually haven't got anything. And in contrast to those who haven't prayed, who actually applied some cheating, false methods on their curriculum, they got jobs that are way, the ones that you want. And then we make a conclusion that, okay, prayers don't work, asking for help doesn't work. And what does work is just cheating one's way through this society. Now, the reason this is so is because we cannot see the delay. There's always that delay that takes place from the moment you're open to the moment when something arrives. Because the world is not, it's not designed just to give you something immediately, because it has to pass through so many other people, so many other timings, so many other associates until it finally arrives, and then you enjoy those benefits. So this delay is what we often miss, and then our own impatience gets the better of us, and then we say, I don't trust this prayer, I don't trust this asking for help, this is all bogus information. For example, okay, concrete. Suppose there's a vase now falling down, and it's your favorite vase, it's your grandmother's vase, it's valued, it's like your whole life is invested in this vase. Now, while the vase is falling down, you go, oh, Ishwara, please make this vase not fall. This is my favorite vase. Is the vase not just going to like stop in the mid-air and not drop? No. In other words, Ishwara is not going to violate the law of gravity just for you. If it did, then in that moment while you're praying, suddenly everything in this world will suddenly float up for however many seconds and then come crashing back down, only because you suspended the law of gravity. So this means that if we think that Ishwara is supposed to give us, and we say, no, see, I haven't got anything, so Ishwara is bogus. This is not understanding Ishwara's laws or how Ishwara works. It does not put things on hold just for you. It has to address everything in the entire universe simultaneously. So all we can do is continue asking for help. And if you receive it, you receive it. If it's different than you expected, so be it. This is called karma yoga, by the way. Doing the best that you can, but don't always expect exactly what you think you should get, because the world doesn't work like that. Lloyd, have I answered your question?
Not totally, because I mean, there surely was many people at the court, and none of them took action, but probably none of them were asked to help specifically. So, following the same logic, that Krishna didn't help until he was asked. Well, none of the others were asked either, but surely they all felt the same as well.
Okay. I think what's happening is, I think the story is being taken too literally. What we're speaking about is symbolism. Now, I can't go into I cannot take it into like an actual, it happened, like it was the people there. And so this is not how Mahabharata works. We look at the symbols behind what has happened.
Yep.
But Draupadi did ask for help from everybody.
Yeah, she did.
She did? Okay.
She did, and she laid out quite detailed arguments why she should be helped.
Yeah, good, excellent. So she did, say all of the reasons why she should, and this is unfair and unjust towards a helpless woman, and still, everyone was caught up in their notion.
Krishna should also have helped without asking if she asked everyone.
Yeah, but she didn't ask Krishna to.
No, but I would have thought that everybody else is wrapped up in their own narrative.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
Okay.
So and so Draupadi was trying to, first asking the royal court, and then when nobody was able to help, she finally resorted to the last resource that we all resort to, and that is the Lord himself. And that is the message here. That when everyone lets us down, that one principle that is always available when we let ourselves be in its presence, surrender, then it's able to capture us and we can move forward in life. We're able to make progress instead of constantly relying on, the different people.
Yeah.
Now, also,
yes.
Sorry, Andre. And also, I think what we ask for should be dharmic value.
Indeed.
Just not asking anything material or whatever. I don't think Lord will come to us. I think we should be dharmic in what we ask for.
Yeah, that's true. Because okay. So now, what happens if you start asking? I want someone to leave their keys to their safe box. I want someone to drop, their credit card with a PIN number on that credit card. Now this doesn't work, because this is a violation of the order. Now suppose it happens and a person has prayed, and they say, you see, it does work. Again, you can't connect one to the other because there's too many variables. It could be a coincidence. You could just be thinking in line with someone who would otherwise be clumsy, and you will go to a clumsy place like a nightclub or somewhere or some place where people drop things, and that would influence your actions, and therefore you will find a credit card. And then a person will justify, you see, my prayers worked. Okay, so even prayers affect our thoughts affect our behavior affects where we actually physically expose ourselves to, and then on the basis of actually confronting that reality, then we make another narrative how my prayers were actually, are answered. But it is not only just your prayers, it's also your thoughts that influence your behavior. So again, there are variables going on.
And I think that's important because Draupadi wasn't asking the question for a specific kind of fabric with a certain pattern and beautiful blue threads. It was just help in a stage of helplessness and being detached and surrendered. And it was that universal help that she was asking for, not an egoistical help.
Okay, good, Martin. Now, Martin, I want to bring up, because what you just said is this word surrender. We've been using maybe about 12 times now. I want to discuss what does this word surrender mean, because I think it's just a little bit undefined. But next week when we meet up, we will speak about what does it actually mean. Give me an example of surrender, okay? Because I'm not quite sure that we've established a concrete basis of the word surrender.
Giving up your attachments to your own lower identities. And so identifying with your egoistical attachments to your own stories and your own interpretations of what you think is what's going on, as opposed to being detached and allowing the universe to actually reveal itself to you, rather than you try to impose yourself onto the universe.
Okay, good. Okay, we'll still bring this up, and I'll have to consider that, Martin. And I've written it down.
Yes,
Okay.
Andre, can I also ask, so why did Draupadi leave the prayer to the last resort in a way? Is that because action is the best way to get places, obviously, but...
Yeah. Okay. Now this is a good question, actually, Kelsey. Why did Draupadi, after all of her attempts to get help, why did she finally resort to the Lord? Now, there's several answers. What happens when our life is not working out and we have nowhere to turn to? Who do we ultimately turn to?
Lord.
Yeah, some higher force, some higher divinity. So this is one reason. And in other words, it's only when we exhaust all of our resources that we become clear and we start to contemplate on something much bigger in life. This means as long as our focus is on, let's say on a worldly basis, not that anything's, wrong with the world, but as long as our focus is there, we're not likely thinking about, the higher. So when we finally realize that this world, no matter how much I ask of it, is actually not delivering what I'm ultimately seeking, then automatically that human mind tends to go into something much higher. This is why, we say on earth, it's actually a privilege to be born, because suffering causes us to think like this, to actually think about our own existentialism, our own existence, about the question of who am I, what am I doing here, what's my connection to you, to this world, why am I born, how do I know you, how do you know me, and why is all this taking place, how did this come about? So these questions start to come when we're sort of you're finished or done with thinking about the world for help. Any other answers to this wonderful question? Oh yes, Arun, I want to.
I just wanted to make a couple of observations.
Yeah.
One is that surrendering really is, Lord, do what is right for me, because we don't know the total picture and Lord knows where things are. And the second observation I had was, how many of us thank Lord for what we are and where we are?
Okay, how many of us, the second observation?
How many of us thank Lord for what He has given us?
Yeah, how many of us thank?
Rather than asking all the time.
Yeah, good. How many thank? Okay, so Arun is making two observations, and that is, okay, now the first one is a little bit, okay, do what is right for me. See, what happens sometimes is we have this idea that I need to surrender because I don't know. But Lord is not some voice that's going to suddenly start talking to me when I stop, when I get out of my way. So all that really we mean when we say this, do what is right for me, is I put my thoughts, I put my own personal, as Martin was saying, my stories away. And then we're just in that place of like nothing's now talking to me. No memories are intercepting. No one, there's no voices. So in that space of that clarity, we're able to now think objectively. We're able to think more deeply. And this is what we mean by the Lord is, letting me now know what I need to do next. And the second is none of us think, or few of us think, or take the time to think what we have been given, whereas most of the time goes into asking for more. Now, this asking for more is, there's a place for that, right? Because some of us don't even ask at all. So we need to balance between asking, but also for just, stepping back and going, wait a minute, I actually have resources in my life that are sufficient for me to actually keep growing. And because of these resources, I can just actually, think about the Lord. Because when you're thanking, what are you thinking about? The one who gave. In other words, when I thank the giver. When I thank the giver, my mind goes on to the whole. My mind goes on to the Lord. So that's where the purpose of thanking really lies. Okay. Now, next week, it's 8 o'clock. I'm going to bring up the question on the basis of the story continuing, which is now the Pandavas have lost the game and they've been exiled to the forest for 13 years. And the Pandavas felt exiled. But I want to ask the question, how do you think they felt while they were exiled? And the second question is, how did the Pandavas cope with these emotions? And I'm going to tie it with how we cope with our own emotions and what methods do we actually apply to cope with life. Okay, so this is going to get some psychology in also. Okay, I'll close with the prayer and then we will questions. Sarve bhavantu sukhinaha, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kashchit dukkha bhag bhavet. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Okay, if you have any questions or any last discussions, let us know. Yes, Robert.
Yeah, I wanted to go back to the start of the session when you talked about destiny and karma.
Yeah.
I think sometimes people confuse destiny and predestination. Now, predestination means we collapse into fatalism. We don't really have free will because we're just unfolding into a story that's already written. This actually contradicts one of the laws of Ishvara because in Mithya, everything is subject to modification, Vakara. So if the story is already written and can't be modified, you've contradicted the law of Ishvara. Therefore, there can't be predestination.
Yeah, okay, now predestination, see, this is now a new word that we're bringing in. I don't know, I don't use the word predestination. I actually don't know what it means.
It means it seems that your destiny is predetermined.
Okay. So it's a fancy way. Okay, so it's a fancy way of saying what of destiny.
Well, actually, no, it's different. I'm saying that people confuse destiny, which is what is.
Yeah.
My destiny is right now. This is what's happening.
Right.
If I believe in predestination, if I believe it's predetermined, I don't have free will, because my actions can't modify reality.
Okay. I mean, otherwise, I would think that destiny is also, in a sense, not completely defined, which produces this sense of predestination. So this is my destiny, and I'm here, and I can't do anything about the fact that I'm now suffering. So I would say that destiny and predestiny, at least in my understanding, are actually one and the same. But it doesn't really matter. We're just sticking with the words destiny and karma, and we're putting that fine distinction between the two.
Thank you.
In hindsight, when you look at your life and you go back to your previous, what's been happening in your life, you can say, yeah, you were predestined to be here now.
Yeah.
But you can't predict in the future.
Yeah, you can say, yeah, okay. Yeah, you can say you're predestined on the basis of your interests in life, which has obviously got you to, where you are today.
Yeah.
Because if your interests are different, then you're not going to be even saying this to someone who's talking about destiny. You'll be maybe doing skateboard or some music or something else. So yes, there is that aspect of we are here because of, quote, destiny, but we need to understand clearly what it means. Destiny just means the causes and effects have taken place in the past, which have now gotten me to where I'm at. That's why I say, avoid these statements, this is destiny, full stop, because it just spreads this partial information to the world.
I guess you could say that and I like his idea that destiny is the here and now, because that's the reality.
Yeah.
And the predestiny is in hindsight. Is you can only have predestiny in hindsight, because that's qualifying how you've got to your destiny.
Okay. Destiny, predestiny. I'm just going to stick with destiny and karma.
I feel that the word destiny shouldn't be used as a law of destiny. It's too subject to misunderstandings, I think.
We say law, as I said at the beginning, because it is inescapable. It's like gravity. It's just operational. And the word destiny in Sanskrit is prarabdha. So when we say prarabdha karma, that means it is what is being expounded, what is being processed every moment.
Okay, maybe I've just got a link of destiny and the future, not destiny and the present.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, okay.
So. Yeah, but law, psychological laws, your brain, neurological laws. There's laws that you do not consciously tell which cells should now fire to understand this English language. So there is a law taking place, the law of psychology, the law of biology. There are chemicals being released without any conscious will. So these are all laws. In the same way, destiny is a law in that sense.
Andre, what about thoughts without action? What kind of effects do they have? Thoughts, but not in action.
Yeah, okay, suppose that there's an argument and I don't have any thoughts about what you say. Then you're gonna think I'm ignoring you. So that's still because I'm not thinking. So that's still gonna have an effect in our relationship between us. So whether we use our thoughts or not, in response to the environment, that's still an action of itself. Because see, as Krishna said, Krishna said, you cannot escape action. To be born is to act. Yes, Martin?
And I think just by having thoughts, you're going to have unconscious action, just as a result of having the thoughts, aren't you? And so you may not be making conscious activity, but just your behavior is going to be relevant to your thoughts.
Okay, now, okay. So we can now split this. Let me put this next week. Yes, Madhu? Conscious and unconscious. Madhu, yes?
Yes, we talk about karma and destiny, we're talking here. But also there is a past life, like we often hear, like Ram was born into this world to kill Ravana. That was his prarabdha, that was his job, why he was brought to earth to kill Ravan. He was given a job to do. That was he was destined to do that job.
Yeah, sure. So this is
circumstances got created for him to perform that task.
Yeah, sure.
So It's that underlying force, that you talk about from the universe that forces us to perform certain actions as well.
Yeah, and like we were saying, Mathu, again, we cannot put an absolute on anything that we're experiencing. It's really a combination of past life, immediate causes, unseen causes in this life. So all of these things are taking place, but we just don't know. For example, why is someone born in a unprivileged family and someone else is born in a privileged family? This is also on the basis of that past life. That means if my thoughts were not conducive with nobility and dharma, died as a drunk person who never took care of myself, then, according to this law of cause and effect, then I will be born in the type of family that reflects my mindset from when the person died in a past life. So this too, modifies our present, this past life. But again, I cannot say now what exactly is the bigger contributor. We just don't know. Yes, Dave.
Yeah, Andre, I'm just, I guess, trying to think why do we need to ask, I guess, the Lord for help rather than just, I guess, trust in the laws of Ishvara and the laws of karma, sort of that idea of acknowledging and accepting all things that happen to us and that this is a result of past actions, that rather than having to ask, shouldn't we be trusting in the process that if this is happening to me now, there's a reason for this, but I need to have faith in the process, and that'll get me through, and things will sort of play out as they do. So if certain people were trying to look after me as I was being disrobed, it might be on my past actions that someone would have stepped in if something else had happened. But I don't know. I grapple with that idea of having to ask.
That's a very good question.
Yeah. So Dave, actually,
but I think that's the difference between passivity and activity. And activity is what it's all about. Passivity is nothingness.
Yes, Lloyd, you also.
I think it's a very good question because I have the same question. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So what I want to say is, see, it's easy now to say why ask, but when there is a genuine conflict and you're in an emotional story, right, and it's hard to get out of that, then to help us get out of that, that's when this asking we need to be reminded so we don't fall back into our old way of thinking and we go, I'm a victim, and because see, when the emotion starts to come, then our intellect reduces, and that disempowers us from taking any action at all. You just look at a relationship. Suppose there's some tension. I can guarantee you most of this knowledge is just going to evaporate in 1 second. That is actually when we need most to ask, to remind ourselves to bring this knowledge back into our memory until it becomes normal. Not only when we're sitting, in our little, rooms, comfortable, there's no problems, but mostly when we're involved with the worldly circumstances. So that's one reason why. And I can give you a good example between myself and brother, but that's 8:11 now.
I just like to share a thought. I mean, this is what I've heard. When we offer all our actions to God and do them with God in mind, you don't need to ask God for help because He will help you anyway. And then, but it's when you remember God only when you are in trouble, then you always have to keep asking Him.
Yeah.
When you want help. So there are two versions.
Yes. Agreed.
There are two versions of this that I've come across. So I thought I'd just bring it up just to.
Yeah, good, Mathu. So there is that time to ask.
Conversation.
Yeah. Good. So there is a time to ask, and there is a time you don't need to ask because you're just wasting your resources, right? You just know to automatically act because there's that inherent trust. SG raised hand. Yes, SG, please.
Basically, I just wanted to say that maybe asking needs to be thought of in relation to being ready for receiving, and not just the physical act of asking. We have to think in terms of being ready to receive help from from Lord, and not just joining our hands in prayer and asking that please ask, please give me, help. So when the lady was saying that when we devote our actions to God, as in Bhakti Yoga or Karma Yoga, so basically that is sort of showing that we are ready to receive help from God. That is showing our intention that our mind is in the right place and we are ready to receive his help.
Yeah, good. So Kirtika is saying that, there's difference between genuine asking and just habitual asking. Habitual asking, that tends to be in a sort of a haphazard fashion, right? Just, I need some help with food. I need some help with my game here. I need some help with computer. So this is what's called, asking in relation to different circumstances that happen in life. And there is that real meeting reality face to face, whereby you go, this is really important to me because I can see the value of having received this benefit. So I can move forward and evolve as a human being. In that aspect, asking becomes so much more effective, so much different than this situational asking. Any other thoughts on this?
It's a bit like a child with their mother in the shop said, "I want this, I want this."
Yeah, good, Martin, good. Versus, a child is drowning and then help me. That's a genuine asking.
Also, I think that when you pray, you also have to remember that Ishvara is in the form of everything in front of you as well. So you can pray, but then that should also be accompanied with intelligent action and investigation on your own part. I mean, I don't think prayer allows us to just sit back and hope. I think prayer should be accompanied with action and yeah.
Good. So what Thomas is saying is, we when we pray to Ishvara, we tend to there's a tendency to put Ishvara out there, who's now going to extend his hand and somehow offer me. But we have to understand that Ishvara is not separate from the very hands, from the very mouth that can negotiate, from the very hands that can go to a website and search for that right resource, from the very ears to listen to the right information. So by understanding that I'm never separate from the all knowledge, all power, which is Ishvara itself, that it encourages me not to make any excuses, because to make an excuse is to deny the presence of Ishvara right now through this body being expressed. Yeah, so good point, Thomas.
Yeah, finally, just to round it out, I think that's been some really good discussion. For me, it's sort of that feeling of if you're acting in accordance with your Dharma and you're sort of exhausting your karma through karma yoga, you're sort of in turn sort of really, I guess, giving of yourself to the Lord in that manner. And to me, it's not a matter of continual asking. It's sort of, Ishvara's got your back if you're doing the right thing, and you can ask, but it's not a direct action of this moment, I need you to do this, but more of a philosophy on the way that you live your life. That was more the point, I guess.
Good. So what Dave is saying is it's an understanding, and the understanding is I'm never away from that which I'm asking. So eventually it's like an automatic. There's no question of asking something out there, because that implies a separation. So you're always being helped, and by trusting the very presence of that help, then there's no question now of asking separately. You're always being helped as long as your understanding is nothing here is separate.
And also your expectations aren't rigid in what the outcome you're expecting it to be when you make those surrendering questions.
Yeah, good. So Martin is saying expectations can sometimes, if we don't get what we want, then we go and we question that power. We go, well, I'm not getting what I want, but this is we're getting in our own ways, by our own ideas, our own likes and dislikes. So, the point is we're always going to get something, but you just don't know if it's actually good for you or not good for you. Sometimes we get something that we don't want, but in retrospect, it is exactly what you needed.